Yes, now everyone, welcome back to another video. And today I'm going to go through every single team and I'm going to try and pick out who I think is going to be their breakout player for this 24-25 A-League season. I think there's a lot of young talent. I think that's the way the league's moving. We're moving towards a more youth-focused approach towards the league. So I'm going to go through and try and predict every single team's breakout player. We're just going to do this in alphabetical order. And starting off with Adelaide United, they have a lot of great youth players in their junior ranks, but I think one that will break out this season, and he kind of had a little bit of game time last year as well, but I think Panache Madania, who I think is in for a massive season, especially if he ends up playing on the wing. Hopefully he can stay fit. I think that's the big issue with Panache at the moment. I think last year he missed the majority of the season with an injury, so if he can stay fit and I think play as a more attacking outlet, because I think that's where his strengths are. You saw in the Brisbane Roar game at the end of last year, he made an instant impact after coming off the bench. He was replacing Nestoria and Kunda, but he made an instant impact once he come off the bench. So I think Panache Madania, definitely one to watch for Adelaide United this season. Next up, Auckland FC, and a relatively new club. I'm not going to try and think I know heaps about their squad, but one player who has caught my eye after a bit of research is Jonty Bidwoy. He is a striker, 19 years of age. He's only made 14 appearances in the New Zealand comp last year, but scored 12 goals. Definitely one to keep an eye on. Looks like he is a great finisher in front of goal, and I definitely think Auckland are going to need that coming into this season. If you saw my ladder predictions, make sure you go check that out as well. I put the emphasis on I'm worried about their attacking outlet, and if someone like Bidoy can get forward and score those goals for Auckland, I think that could really help their chances of making the top 6 this season. Next up, Brisbane Roar. There's a few interesting youngsters coming through at Brisbane Roar that have caught my eye. I'm going to go with one that actually has a contract. There's a few scholarship players that, haven't fully got their scholarship contracts yet, but Lucas Harrington, Ruben Zadkovic said it himself. I am agreeing with him. He has one of the best potentials as a central defender in Australia at the moment. I wouldn't go as far as saying best central defender in Australia, but he is definitely an absolute beast of a centre back. He was taking on players in the NPL last year, experienced former pros, and coming out on top 9 times out of 10. I think he's definitely one to keep an eye on for Brisbane Roar. If he can get some game time under his belt, I think he could really stabilise that defence, which has been a bit shaky for Brisbane Roar over the last few years. And I think someone like Lucas Harrington, he's very, very tall. I think he's probably almost like 190 centimeters. He is massive, but I think if he's able to get some game time on the pitch, I think he's able to show his class on that pitch as well. So Lucas Harrington is my breakout player for Brisbane Roar. Next up, Central Coast Mariners. There's a few interesting youngsters coming through at the Central Coast, but I'm going to go with Bailey Branchman. He made a few appearances last season, and I think he's up there with trying to push for that striker position like your Alu Qualls, like your Ryan Edmondsons. He's got a lot of potential. Bailey Branchman already has a few young Socceroos caps under his belt as well. He's a striker, he's tall, he's got the mobility as well, and he's definitely good with his feet. I think if he's able to push his way into the side, make a fair bit of contributions at the start of the season, I think he could be, honestly, I think he could have a possibility of being their number 1 striker, especially towards the end of the season. I think he has a lot of potential, Bailey Branchman, so he is my player to watch for the Central Coast Mariners. For MacArthur, I am going to go with someone who's been playing a little bit in the midfield but can play out wide, can play as a winger. I'm going to go with Ollie Rodunzo. He looked really good in the Australia Cup when he played, in my opinion. He looked comfortable on the ball and he didn't look out of place at all in that MacArthur midfield next to someone like Luke Bratton, who has a ton of experience. I think Ollie Rodunzo is definitely one to keep an eye on. He's already made a little bit of a contribution to the Australia youth sides as well. I think Ollie Rodunzo is definitely a player. If he is given the faith, and I think Milija Sajovski will show a bit of faith, especially in the midfield, to these youngsters. You know, you got Franz Deli as well. I think he's one to keep an eye on. Oli Radanzo, I think, will be the breakout player for MacArthur this season. I think he's in for a massive season and wouldn't be surprised if he got himself a move away by the end of this season. Next up, Melbourne City. And it's one that kind of broke out a little bit last year, but I think he will be going to that absolute next level with no Jamie McLaren in front of him. I'm going to go with Max Caputo. I think he definitely seems like the striker to take Melbourne City forward. Yes, they've brought in a couple other options as well, and there's a lot of promising youth players in this Melbourne City team. But Max Caputo, if he can keep himself fit, there's a bit of a rumour going around at the moment that he won't be fit for the first couple of months of the season. But if he's able to get fit, get firing, I think he single-handedly, if he gets 15 to 20 goals, it definitely could help Melbourne City get to finals. Because if you saw my ladder prediction, once again, go watch that. If you saw that, I'm not 100% convinced by this Melbourne City side. And I think Aurelio Vidmar, once Caputo comes back in, I think he will show a lot of faith to him. And I think he will be the starting striker for the rest of this season. Hopefully, he can get up to those standards. Once again, a former youth international. So hopefully, Max Caputo can show his class this season, and who knows, maybe get himself a move away as well. Melbourne Victory, I think there's only one player that can and will be the breakout for Melbourne Victory this season. It's Casey Boss. I think he's looked exceptional under Patrick Kisnorbo, especially in that Australia Cup one of their best players over the whole Cup run, in my opinion. You know, he's going to be playing a similar position to what his brother played under Patrick Kisnorbo, and look where Geordie is at the moment. So I think Casey Boss under Patrick Kisnorbo will be able to excel. He's definitely going to be the number one fullback choice, in my opinion. Who knows, he could push up further as the season goes on, but I think he's almost cemented himself in as that fullback for Melbourne Victory, and I think he's going to be causing a lot of teams a lot of troubles down that side of the pitch. So Casey Boss, he's an exceptional player, and I think the sky is the limit for Casey Boss. So I think he has to be the breakout player for Melbourne Victory this season. Now on to Newcastle Jets. Now this whole team is full of mainly untested young players, and that makes this squad very exciting to watch, and it makes it very hard to pick a breakout player for this upcoming season. Last season you saw Clayton Taylor break out. I think he will just go leaps and bounds above this season as well. There's a lot of hype around young Alex Nunes at the club as well. But I'm going to go for one of their new transfers in. I think Eli Adams, once he's given the game time, and I think he will under Rob Stanton, I think he is in for a massive season. He had a few good performances for Melbourne Victory last year, especially that screamer he scored over in Perth as well. I think his dynamicism off that wing, I think he will cause a lot of teams a lot of troubles, especially if he's playing off the right, cutting in onto that left foot. I think he is in for a massive season, and this whole Newcastle squad is just one to watch out for, in my opinion. Now on to Perth Glory, very similar to Newcastle Jets in the fact that they've recruited a lot of young players, a lot of untested kind of players, but I'm going to go with someone that's seen a bit of A-League experience, but not a heap, and I think this season, you know, playing in probably a more natural position for him, be able to prove himself and prove that he belongs in the A-League, and that's Taras Gamulka, who's just recently come over from Brisbane Roar. He looked absolutely exceptional in the Australia Cup, 5 assists in just the 2 games. Sorry, they played 3 games, Perth Glory, but I think Taras Gamulka playing as almost an 8 or a attacking midfield, where last season when he did play for Brisbane Roar, he was playing more as that defensive kind of midfielder role. I think Taras Gamulka is in for a massive season. His playmaking skills look to be utilised perfectly under David Zrilic, and with Adam Taggart in front of him, I think it's only up for Taras Gamulka this season. Now Sydney FC, a bit of a tricky one. Obviously, Hayden Matthews, he has to be the standout player from last season, so you can't put him in this season again. Although I do think he's going to go to a whole nother level this season. Definitely get that move away. I'm going to go with an attacker, and I'm going to go with Diego Quintal. There's a lot of hype around this youngster. Basically, NPL, he ran it last season for Sydney FC. They didn't have the greatest NPL campaign, but Thiago Quintal himself, he had an exceptional campaign in the NPL. There's a lot of attacking options for Sydney FC, so if he can get the game time, I think he will be able to show his class on the ball. I think Ufuk Talay will trust him enough to put him on the pitch a fair amount of times this season, but it's just whether he, how the injuries go in front of him. You got players like Douglas Costa, Joe Lolly, Klamala, he looks pretty good this season, so it's just whether he can get in front of some of those players, maybe like a Patrick Wood as well. You got to get in front of him. So I think if he's shown game time, I think he will repay his trust in Ufuk Talay. So one to watch for me, Thiago Quintal. Next up, Wellington Phoenix. Now, there's a lot of hype around the youngsters around Wellington Phoenix. Gabriel Sloan Rodriguez is one that everyone is excited for. Definitely seems like there's a lot of hype around him coming out of New Zealand. But I'm here for someone who played a bit last year as well, I think, especially with the departure of Ben Old and Oscar Zavada. I think you'll see a lot more game time this season, and that is Oscar Van Hatten. I think he played very well when he was given the opportunities last season. Whether he's played still as that wing-back role or he gets pushed further up the pitch, I think if he's pushed further up the pitch, I think that's exactly where Van Hatten needs to be. He was very good for me, in my opinion, last season when he was given the opportunity. So I think if Chiefy gives him that opportunity to perform at that level, I think he will repay him. Once again, I'm saying with a lot of these players, but it's in the managers to put their faith in these players. But Oscar Van Hatten, he's already kind of got that foot in the door with Chiefy and the Phoenix. So I think Oscar Van Hatten, I think he's in for a big season this year. Obviously, you got Sam Sutton as well. I think there's a lot of talent coming out of this Wellington Phoenix squad, which is good for them because Auckland's now entered the picture for youngsters as well. Now, for the Western Sydney Wanderers, there's a lot of talent coming through this team, in my opinion. Dylan Cicluna, Alex Battalato, Oscar Priestman, I think he's in for a massive year. But if I had to pick one, I think I'm going to go with Alex Battalato. Looks like in preseason, Alan Stadgett is putting his trust in Battalato. He's got the number 10 shirt. If he can link up with Anderson or Sapsford or Barella, whoever plays in front of him, he got Milanovic as well. I think he will be a key player for the Western Sydney Wanderers midfield this year. I think Alex Battalato for the Wanderers this season, I think he's in for a massive season. I think, in my opinion, I think he will end up with probably 10 or 15 plus goals and assists this season. So I think Alex Battalato definitely one to keep an eye out for if you're the Western Sydney Wanderers and if you're a fan of the A-League. And final team, Western United. Now, another team that's trusted heavy into the youth for this upcoming season. I want to, give a shout out to Matt Grimaldi. I think he broke through last year, so I'm not going to go with him, although I think I'm once again going to go to that next level this upcoming season. But I'm going to go someone who did still come through last year, but not as much. And I think you will see a lot more game time this year, and that's Abel Wallity. He looks like an exciting, explosive player. He already scored one A-League goal, so I think if he's shown the game time and the trust by John Aloisi, because it looks like Aloisi and Western United are just trusting in the youth in this season. So I think Abel Wallity, if he's able to show his dynamicism and his explosiveness, even if he's like an impact player off the bench like Aaron Kunda was the first couple of years he was in the league, I think that will help him develop and help him mesh into the Western United system. And I think if they utilize him like that, I think he could be very, very good for them. He just seems like one of those kind of players that it's a mixed bag. You don't know what you're going to get, and especially as a defender, that's very worrying. So Abel Wallity, I think, definitely has to be my breakthrough player for Western United. But there we go. There are my 13 breakthrough players for this upcoming season. Let me know down in the comments if you guys agree. Maybe put some names out there that I didn't say, or maybe other people aren't thinking as well, because there's a lot of talent that will come through this season. I probably won't get them all right, but I'm going to try my best to shine a light on those 13 players as well for this upcoming season. So if you have enjoyed, make sure you leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, because the A-League is almost back. Until next time, I'll see you soon.